Coming up on Now You Made It Awkward podcast.
What's going on, guys? So, Editor SHOKY here in the future. I wanted to go ahead and give a preamble for this episode. We are going to be discussing a pretty hefty topic involving bad people doing bad things to children. And if any of that will make you uncomfortable, by all means, maybe this isn't the episode for you, but the goings on within this episode, as we discuss the investigation, and then even the police officer himself who blew the whistle on a situation in Buffalo, New York. So I do want to say here at the beginning, we do stand with angry cops and with Unsubscribed podcast, and Detective Rich High. We're good. We're good with him. It's pretty cool. Like the guy. He's funny, except whenever you see him tear up and get emotional because he's been stressed to the gills when it comes to this situation and the fact that he couldn't handle it anymore. So either way, here at the Now You Made It Awkward podcast, we do stand with angry cops. And if there's anything that our tiny show could ever lend towards a much bigger content creator, it's nothing more than our support in whatever is going to happen with him and hopefully his future career still as an SVU detective and being out there and doing his best to protect kids from the worst people in our modern world. So, that's what's going to happen today. And also, this episode is coming out of order. I felt that it made more sense to go ahead and get this episode out this week. We actually shot it this week that it is releasing. And so if you're confused why episode 140 didn't happen, and we're suddenly on to 141. Well, 140 will come next week. It's one of our standard episodes. This one just took precedence. So it is what it is, guys. Sorry if there's any kind of confusion, but that's what's going on. So now on with the episode.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots, and a sexy body full of tats.
All right, either way. So, guys, we do have a story to discuss today. Sorry, I was making sure that I have everything pulled up here because one of them I'm going to have to read the hard way because websites be dumb and they want their money and you can't do it otherwise. Okay. So this has to do with something that happened on a recent Unsubscribed podcast episode where Rich High, otherwise known as Angry Cops, came on. He's a friend of the podcast, and he's been on there plenty of times. That's how most people have been exposed to him before. He's been on YouTube for a long time. He's a 14-year veteran of the Buffalo, New York Police Department, and he's currently an SVU detective. That's Special Victims Unit. He's also been in the military for, I think, 12 years, or 12 or 14 years. He's pretty much there. He's a drill sergeant in the reserves. So he does that at least once a month, I believe. So, he's a military guy. He's a cop. He loves doing both. He makes enough money where he doesn't have to do either job. He could just do YouTube for the rest of his life, but he loves his job. He loves beating the stupidity out of new recruits. And I don't mean literally. I mean, as a drill sergeant, it does. Basically destroy the weakness, replace with strength. And he enjoys being a cop because he just loves putting away bad guys and doing the right thing. So he goes on Unsubscribed, technically a few weeks ago is when it was recorded, just dropped this week, and basically starts telling about the fact that the Buffalo school system, or Buffalo school district, has been covering up reports of sexual assault, child abuse, and even attempted kidnapping for whatever reason, even to the point that he has himself has been investigating at least one of the cases directly, if not, his department has been dealing with it because it is Buffalo and Buffalo. It is what it is. And they keep running into roadblocks, or they keep running into people who are just, they find out, in one case, deleted video evidence of an attempted kidnapping. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to read this first article. So we're going to go from one article to another, basically going back and forth between what Rich has said and what the official from the school district, and then other outside things that have come up since. So that was Saturday when that episode dropped. This has all happened since today, which is Monday. Think about that. Just 3 days over the weekend, and all hell is broke loose, effectively. So, reading from Law Enforcement Today. Let me bring it up here so we can all see what's going on. So, Buffalo SVU detective whistleblower. Schools are refusing to report sexual assaults, child abuse, attempted kidnappings. So, Buffalo, New York. Buffalo Police Detective Richard High of the Special Victims Unit, known widely as YouTube creator Angry Cops, and a regular guest on the nationally ranked Unsubscribed podcast. That's worldwide ranked. Thank you. All right, made a bombshell whistleblower report against Buffalo Public Schools on a roundtable show and viral video released Saturday. High, a 14-year technically, veteran police officer, U.S. Army National Guard, drill instructor, revealed stunning allegations that Buffalo public school officials intentionally obstructed police investigations into alleged child abuse, sexual assault, attempted kidnappings, and failed to act in their role as mandatory reporters. And that is one of the biggest thing, is that as a school, because you are in charge of these children, especially counselors, superintendents, anybody in any type of position of power in a school is apparently, at least in Buffalo, supposed to they're mandated to report any incidences, and they haven't been. So that's fun. Let's continue. High called out the legal representatives of the Buffalo public school in particular for deliberately ignoring lawful subpoenas and being obstructionist and actually giving information to school administrators and school personnel to not talk to the police or assist the police in any way. That was a big thing because in the case, this particular case of the kidnapping, they knew there was evidence and they were subpoenaed for any evidence they had, whether that's actual people coming to them with reports or any videos or anything else like that. And they have literally ignored all subpoenas from a judge. That's crazy. That is crazy, because if you or I were to ignore a subpoena, what would happen?
Would be in jail?
A police officer would come to your door and be like, excuse me, the court wants to see you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Buffalo Public Schools publicly denied the allegations. Of course they did. In a statement released social media, we'll be covering that in a minute, claiming the district is prepared to vigorously address these untruths. Don't you love that word, untruths? So Rich actually said, that's not a real word. Actually, technically speaking, is a real word for legal reasons. Because they can't say that he's lying, because to do so would mean a very specific legal definition. To call it an untruth might be, well, it's something we can't necessarily prove that is or isn't true, but we can just throw that out there. Isn't that a fun thing? Okay, so during the podcast, Detective High, at times fighting to maintain composure, which, watching a guy who very much is a jokester and a pain in the ass, and a guy who talks a lot of shit and has a quick wit, literally have to stop and compose himself because of the story he was about to tell, it was hard to watch. Watching any grown man cry is difficult, but for a tough dude that to be tough, he's a fucking drill instructor. Mm-hmm. He's a tough motherfucker. To see him basically have to keep himself together as he was talking about this, not just because of how he felt about the case, but because he also knows that by basically lighting this fuse, he has no idea what's going to explode or how it's going to hurt him, which was a big thing. But he couldn't sit on it anymore, So described several troubling examples of his allegations. One of the examples was a case he directly investigated in his role with the SVU. He also expressed concerns that his whistleblower report could negatively impact his career in law enforcement. He began with an incident at the Dr. Charles R. Drew Science Magnet Elementary School. That's a sign, isn't it? You're going to charge by the word on one of those, Chad? Charge by the letter?
By the letter. Yep.
Attached to the Buffalo Museum of Science. So this is all quotes directly from the podcast here. There's a school that's attached to the Buffalo Science Museum. That school that's attached to the Buffalo Science Museum has doors that can go from the museum into the school. Those doors are not locked. Individuals can get into them, right? Stranger danger, right? And that happened. So a stranger went into the school. It's a grade school, a very low school. So what he meant was low grade.
Yeah.
People were asking questions thinking he was insulting the school. He meant literally it's like grades 1 through 4.
Yeah.
And this person grabbed a male and a female child.
That's what's nuts.
Yeah. So goes into the school, grabs a young female child and a male child and tries to leave. And I'm gonna parcel. I'm quoting here, by the way. It's not me having problems reading. Parcel this story up in a kind of way that the information came in. At first, the information that came in was that there was one female child that was, it was an attempted abduction. There was no report about the second child. Kind of a big deal. Second child, the boy, had pissed himself. And when his parents came, this is where he literally had to stop and pull himself together. Like it was like a minute. Like it took him a minute, and the guys were like, "It's okay, man. It's okay." Also, room of tough guys. If you've ever seen Unsubscribe, like, hold on, I'll have to pull up the picture eventually. But like me in the future, pull up an image from the people at the table with him. So you've got Eli double tap, ex special or specs or was the army? Yeah, ex army. Infantryman. Mm-hmm. Even though he's like 5'4", he's jacked and stronger than anybody else at the table. You've got a fat electrician Nick, who is like a massive dude and can bench like 305. So, then you got Rich. Then you've got habitual line crosser next to him, a guy who literally shoots missiles at bad guys for a living. Sitting next to Brandon Herrera, who makes really big guns for fun. Sitting next to another ex-cop, ex-Navy guy with donut operator. So all big, tough, strong dudes, half of which are dads, by the way. And they're all like basically trying to comfort their friend while he's trying to take this massive risk. Eli already knew about this. He had already talked to him about it. That's why he came on the show. So, all right. So when his parents came to pick him up, the school did not disclose to the parents that the kid was part of an attempted abduction. So when the parents asked him, mind you, this is hyperbole a little bit, why did my kid piss his pants at school? The teachers and people in charge did not tell them that there was an attempted abduction. Then the school deleted the video of the attempted abduction. Okay, so you as a parent, even as a stepdad, if you were to go pick up Cade from school, which I'm sure you did at some point in his young life, even possible more recent life too, if you picked him up and he had peed himself, would you just think he had a bad day and ask him? But if he was visibly upset and he couldn't tell you what happened, how would you feel?
I would be a little upset and everything too myself, trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
I would actually probably talk to the school.
Ask the teachers.
There. It's like, what happened?
Why is my kid covered in piss?
And why wasn't I called or anything like that? So either bring something new, or how long has he been like this?
Exactly. Like if you picked your kid up and he had already peed himself and clearly hadn't changed clothes.
Yeah.
Also, we're kind of we don't know for sure.
We don't know.
But it was apparently recognizable that he had peed himself. But you're right. I remember at least way back when, I know for a fact I definitely peed myself at school. Somebody had to bring me some clothes or at least come pick me up, because they weren't going to let me sit in pissy clothes all day. Even with little kids in their diapers, you can't leave that on there. It will have problems.
Yeah.
A larger kid running around all day, they'll probably dry off a bit, but still. Now you got to be the kid that not only just nearly got abducted, but also peed himself.
Well, I like, he did have an incident, but he got like pushed down in some like water. And so he went to he was muddy and everything like that. But so he went to the office, nurses, whatever like that, and they actually gave him a change of clothes. But they put his clothes in a bag. And then he comes home. I'm like, why are you? Like,
why are you in new clothes?
Like, yeah, what the hell are you wearing?
Yeah, that would make sense. So, I mean, maybe that is also kind of what happened, but apparently they didn't give him any answers. So here, the DA's office only got the video, because somebody within the school had the wherewithal to record it and then give it to them. So the way he described it is basically someone recorded the video on their cell phone from the screen when they found out it was to be deleted. It's the only reason the DA has any evidence.
So someone was smart enough to do that.
Yes. So the DA's office has sent subpoenas, so like court order documents from judges that are signed, to the school's legal representatives, and those representatives have intentionally not responded to them. So the school's lawyers, right? Now here's the weird thing, which is like this is the biggest issue right here, is that specific one is the one that sent me over the edge. Obviously, I'm emotional from it. The biggest issue with this entire story, well, one of the issues with this entire story is that when subpoenaed, these legal representatives for the Buffalo School Department are ignoring the subpoenas and not just not responding to them, but being obstructionists and actually giving information to the school administrators and the school personnel to not talk to the police or assist the police in any way. Like, this, I mean, I don't want to make it political, but this is kind of the same thing as what's going on with the deportations right now, where you literally have judges being arrested for helping illegals evade ICE. Sometimes even letting them stay in their own house.
Okay.
And so in a very similar manner, you've got legal representation who know something bad has happened at the school, especially to children, and they're saying, do not talk to the cops about this. And someone gave the order for that evidence to be deleted. It's one thing to just say, hey, don't say anything so we can cover our ass. Someone gave the order for that to be deleted.
Yeah.
That person needs to be held massively accountable. And anybody else who helped cover it up also all needs to be held accountable.
Now, have they stated how long this has been going on?
Not in this case.
Okay.
But later on, because there's lots of ongoing investigations. This just happened to be the one that he was involved
recently?
in. Yes, he said this was the one that sent him over the edge. All right. So in a second troubling example, Hyde told the story of a girl who had been reported being beaten by her father, alleged to be a member of the Bloods gang, only for guidance counselor to fail to report it twice. He explained that the counselor, quote, she didn't report it, and then the next incident happened where this girl had a video of, I forget if it was either her dad post beating her, or if it was during the beating, or if it was of her injuries. So basically she videoed something about this last meeting. I think it was of her dad punching her. And she walks into the counselor's office while she's with another girl, plays the video, and the woman's like, is that you? And she's like, yeah, that's me. And then the girl walks out of the office, and then later on the day, the counselor goes up to her like, hey, listen, what's going on with that video? Like, is that you? Like, what's going on? The typo here. So she's like, yeah, that's me and my dad beats me all the time. And the kid walked away. Not reported to CPS, not reported to the police. So that means eventually they got the statement, I assume, from the counselor about this way after the fact. At that point, she should have been like, okay, hey, now we're going to call CPS. Nope. Said to continue, it was in the third time when my case comes in. The kid comes into school beaten and bruised and swollen. Then they finally remove the kid from the parents' custody, right? And then that's when I get the investigation of child abuse. It took 3 times. You good? Okay. So that one was already pretty bad because I know kids who were abused in school, that came to, and I never had to deal with that end of it. I mean, I dealt with abuse in school, like from other students.
Yeah.
I was bullied. Go figure. A nerd like me got bullied, right? Actually, I talked about that on the podcast, the Patreon podcast the other week. I mean, that was so bad for like an entire school year. Like, apparently my mom said that I would come home crying from how bad I was bullied. It's like, I don't remember that, but maybe that's one of those things I locked out.
Yeah, I was bullied as well. So
yeah,
new kid in a new district. And
I'd say at least I wasn't the new kid. I was always with the same people, but because of one bad joke I shared with the wrong people,
I got picked on mercilessly for like a fucking year, to the point that when they did get involved, basically if something happened to me, all I had to do was report it and that person was going to be instantly written up. And I only had to do it once and everybody stopped. Either way, so moving on, because it's not over yet. Moving to the allegations of sexual assault in the Buffalo public school system, High told the podcast, in his opinion, the legal representatives of Buffalo City schools that are advising, educating, I think it says scaring, whatever you want to say it is, to these administrators, teachers, counselors, don't talk to the police, don't make a police report, have the police report say, instead of sexual assault, make it information only. Literally in quotes. You know, well, you want to bury a sexual assault with a kid and have a, quote, fucking cop show up and then have them write down everybody's name and say information only, and then don't forward it to Special Victims Unit. 5 kids raped, 7 kids are raped by one other kid in the school, right? This is a bad quote, the way they wrote this. 7 kids are raped by one other kid in the school. They're 14, he's 16, so it doesn't fucking matter. Like a repeat rapist.
Yeah.
In this school.
Knowing
Nobody fucking did a thing. Don't know which school. That's not spelled out here. These are cases he's aware of but not on. That's why I couldn't give a lot of specifics. Because he is in the Special Victims Unit. They are a unit. They do things together. Okay, so in a post on X responding to the denial of the Buffalo Public School System, High revealed 2 years ago a BPS student was raped in a school by a pool, and the principal, quote, did her own investigation and, quote, closed the case. Never reported it. A year later, the child reported it to the police, but there was no video available because you never reported it. So apparently there was video of it, supposedly. So, at this point, because if a case is closed, I guess he can talk about it. If a case is ongoing, obviously he can't. I'm not giving any details. So, in a brief phone interview with Law Enforcement Today, this website, Detective High expressed his disgust with the denial issued by the Buffalo Public School System. He told LET, untruth isn't even a word, but they can't say lies because all the information I stated is from numerous law enforcement investigations, and we have mountains of evidence. So he actually went on the news on Saturday to WKBW. High told interviewers that he fears he may face disciplinary action for going public. This is definitely a chance, but it's the right thing to do, It's like I've gotten a lot of space since the videos came out. I've gotten a lot of calls and text messages from different people and, different ranks in the Buffalo PD, outside the Buffalo PD, local national politics that are saying that, they support me in my decision, and it's kind of hard to wag your finger at somebody who's calling out somebody for not protecting children. And I mean, we know Epstein Island was a thing. Mm-hmm. And we know people knew about it. Mm-hmm. We've known ever since the Biden administration that hundreds of thousands of children have come across the border to basically be used in some form of slavery. Most importantly, sex slavery. We know this for a fact. And our government helped process those children into sex slavery. So it doesn't shock me at all to see in a basic bitch school system that administrators would turn a blind eye to cover their own ass and probably threaten good people who would do the right thing. Because I guarantee you there are teachers who have been told from their students, hey, this happened to me. What should I do? And they bring it up probably to their administrator like they're told to, and probably should, right? And they're said, don't do anything. Don't talk to that kid anymore. And we can't have this here in our school. I'm not making specific allegations. I'm saying this is kind of what is being alleged.
Yeah, bad press.
Bad press. Because I remember one argument he said is like, why wouldn't somebody ask him, why would they, I think it was Brandon, asked him, why would they do this? Why would they keep their mouth shut? He's like, because they think maybe they'll lose funding. It's like, but that's not how it works.
No.
That is not how that works. So why? All right. Okay. Let's see here. Kyle Reyes, owner of the 1776 Project, which owns law enforcement today, they're quoting their own boss, had the following to say. Buffalo PD Richard High is exactly the man we need in law enforcement, especially in these far left cities and school districts facing the very real possibility of losing everything. For his career, his retirement, being hit with lawsuits, he decided to stand on truth and righteousness. Had the school done their part and focused on protecting kids and not protecting their own asses, perhaps we wouldn't need whistleblowers. I'd encourage AG Bondi to immediately open a criminal investigation into the school district, throw every single one of these educators who put children at risk behind bars. I can't say I'm not behind that. That sounds great. Let's do that. You know, I'm all for looking into this shit and figuring it out. However, that's only one side of the story. So let's, never want to say that we don't try our best. And plus, I had lots of time to kill this morning waiting on my fucking physical. So I can't pull this one up on screen, guys, because of the way websites work, and they won't let me open it again. So this is from buffalonews.com. That seems like a pretty reputable news source, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's their city. I hope they would know. Here's the headline. This is great. Buffalo police detective with rocky past alleges sexual assault abduction cover-ups by Buffalo schools. I don't know if you've ever written a headline before, but usually the first few words are where you put the thing that you think is most important. Why do you think they focused on saying that he has a rocky past? Instead of going, hey, by the way, local cop says that a school district is covering up sexual assault. He may have a rocky past. Maybe that would be the way you put that. Or maybe put, but can we trust him?
Yeah.
That kind of nonsense. Okay, so I hate having to read this shit, but it's fine. It's fine because this is why I got in that little slightly Twitter beef earlier. All right, so a Buffalo police detective who has found himself in trouble before, once again, first fucking sentence is the thing they find is most important, over his actions on and off the job, took to a popular podcast Sunday to accuse Buffalo public schools of covering up incidents of attempted abduction, sexual assault, and child abuse in the last 2 years. Actually, it's more than that, but yes. Richard High, a veteran of the Buffalo Police Department, an active military sergeant, drill sergeant. They didn't put drill sergeant. I was like, appeared on a roughly 40-minute special segment of the Unsubscribed podcast. Yeah, it was about 38 minutes. To describe upsetting situations he believes were improperly handled by employees of the school district, from attorneys and school counselors to teachers and administrators. That sentence didn't come out right, I don't think. That's how it was written. That wasn't. As of Sunday afternoon, the YouTube version of the podcast approached 500,000 views, as well it should. The Buffalo school system, this is a quote, has been intentionally not reporting the sexual assaults of students between students and has also used the Buffalo Police Department's school resource officers to write reports and use their influence over those officers to close reports. I forgot he did mention that. The other article did not mention that. So the school resource officers have been made to basically close cases that never got investigated. It said High, who called his accusations a whistleblower situation in which he expected possible discipline. Buffalo Schools posted a statement to its social media accounts Saturday evening to acknowledge the video's existence. That's funny. And stated plans to vigorously address these untruths. The district statement added that incidents are handled with seriousness, integrity, fairness, and empathy. Right? Clearly. You have a cop literally spelling out how none of that is true. The Buffalo News requested a response by the Buffalo Police Department to High's accusations. A spokesperson acknowledged the request, but no statement had been issued as of late Sunday. Probably because they're dealing with the shitstorm, if we're being fair.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Knowing that podcast was definitely recorded weeks ago, probably, because they bulk record them, like usually 4 at a time, and then release them over the month. And I know he hasn't been back in Texas for a little while because between his normal day job, his drill sergeanting and stuff like that, he can't fly down to Texas that often. But he was on at least 2 back-to-back episodes of Unsub. So, because they always get a lot of their friends in. Okay, let's see here. High said a recent incident sent him over the edge. He detailed the February incident. And okay, so that's all that part there that we already went over. But here's the details. So they actually include the name of the person. So they did bust the guy at some point. So Shane Cronin, 30, of Illinois. Guy's from Illinois. He was trying to steal kids in there. Buffalo police at the time said Cronin had approached a young student, High, who said he worked personally on this case, that Cronin had tried to abduct the 2 students, a girl and a boy, and the attempted abduction of the boy was never reported and not disclosed. So they did know about the girl. They never said anything about the boy. Don't know why, but they didn't. So that's very strange. The school then deleted the video of the attempted abduction. And the district attorney's office only got it because somebody within the school had the wherewithal to record it and give it to them. We already covered that. All right. So the podcast has already sent tremors through the district. Superintendent Tanya M. Williams-Knight, that's a name, posted Sunday that she was deleting her social media accounts due to High's accusations. I have heard this, that they're doing a lot of deleting of their personal accounts so that people will stop going after them.
Yeah.
But also, they were deleting comments. The school district was deleting comments on posts where people were basically making accusations, and they started editing and deleting comments from the post. I mean, they can do that, but it still looks really bad, right? Okay. Unfortunately, at this time, there are completely false distractions against my staff, the district, and myself taking place. False distractions? What does that even mean? By people who I do not even know. The superintendent wrote. Sorry, I've read that. That was a comma, not a period. Williams-Knight, just pick a name. It's not even hyphenated. It's just Williams-Knight. Has used social media throughout her 3 years in a role to highlight positive developments within the district. Oh no, she has to delete her social media because of this. Bite me. All right. Parent leaders reacted differently to High's message. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Correct. Said Ed Spidell. Or Speedle. I don't know. It looks like Spidell. President of the District Parenting Coordinating Council. Jessica Bauer-Walker, Director of Community Health Worker Network of Buffalo, emphasized that there is help for parents and families alarmed by the types of incidents High spoke about. She did not want to comment on any of the specific situations High raised. I wonder why she didn't want to comment on the specific ones. They're like, shit. They caught us on that one. They're like, maybe you should. All right. It's important to ensure that BPS has policies and practices in place that protect students and provide accountability and transparency to families if and when an incident occurs. Well, we already know it doesn't, she said. Now, in the case of the girl who was getting beaten, I mean, if they didn't pay attention the first time, they were asking questions on the second go because they're like, wait, what the fuck? And then they didn't do anything then. But it took the third one where she came to school literally walking evidence.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, I guess we can't ignore this one. I mean, but that person seemed like they maybe wanted to do the right thing, but something stopped her, I guess. Because you could do anonymous tips.
Yeah.
They'd be like, well, how do you know? Shit. I work for this. You know, if somebody were to threaten your job for trying to speak out, yes, obviously bad things. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying the obvious. Students and parents should know who to go to for help in their school district, including community-based family advocates. Buffalo Teachers Federation President Rich Nigro, I'm assuming is how you say that, planned to address some of the topics High raised with the district leadership. So they were planning on having a meeting. They said tonight. I don't know if that means now, tonight, or was last night. That I don't know. Security and safety of all our members and our students is Federation's highest priority, he said Sunday. So that would be, okay. I'll be following up with the district on details on the allegations reported yesterday by the Buffalo SVU detective. I'll be updating members in coming hours, and I'll have more information. High's actions as an officer and public persona have brought trouble. Okay, so here's how they come down on Rich as a person to try to talk shit. And he makes no bones about it. He's talked about some of these things that he's gotten in trouble for, so he's not trying to hide anything. So High's actions as an officer and public persona have brought trouble in the past. Local news outlet Investigative Post reported in February that an investigation by the New York State AG revealed that High's misconduct on several on- and off-duty incidents should have been met with greater discipline. Separately, High was suspended in 2016 and 2017 for content on his Angry Cop social media account, which has about 730,000 followers on Facebook. They didn't mention YouTube. Which has and has been dedicated largely to satire and memes. So they basically suspended him for memery. At the time he was suspended in 2016, High had put up more than 100 of his own videos on the former video sharing site Vine. Oh, that's right. He started on Vine. That's right. Many of the videos feature topics that police leaders deemed objectionable, such as High pretending to snort cocaine, then screeching and laughing, recording fake police shooting, in which High tells the victim to be quiet since he's only grazed, and one featuring High, who is white, dancing around with a black officer to promote racial harmony. I mean, clearly he's a jackass. He's just a jackass. It's fine. Buffalo Police Benevolent... What? Hold on. The Buffalo Police Benevolent Association... Okay. Stood behind High in a statement Sunday morning by President John Davidson. Detective Richard High is a passionate detective in the Buffalo Police Department who prioritizes the well-being of the city's most vulnerable victims, wrote Davidson, who declined to comment on the specific incidents about which High spoke. Once again, they shouldn't necessarily talk if they don't have the info, right? Especially if now they're investigating the school for it, right? You definitely can't talk about it. As a member of the U.S. Armed Forces and law enforcement officer, he does not shy away from the work he does to maintain his physical and mental health, which is part of the reason he acts like a jackass on the internet, is to deal with the shit he sees and does. Which, by the way, he did go to war. It's like he wasn't just nobody. He did serve overseas. His most recent podcast shows his passion for the job and dedication to his mental health. Detective High is a valued member of the Buffalo PBA and of the what? PBA. Okay. And has our support. So basically that guy said that. Now, what I was reading otherwise was somebody else who went off on a very long diatribe of all the stuff that he did, like saying shit online. Obvious. One time where he basically got into a verbal altercation with a judge who was having a fight with his neighbor over something. And the judge started, do you know who I am? Do you know, I know this person, and this person.
Name
so he
dropping
basically name dropping everything. And he said, shut the fuck up. I don't care who you are, you know? And then this one time where he basically, it was a kind of a domestic sort of call. It was a street thing that went wrong. And these kids started beating up on another kid. So they separated everybody. He asked the victim, okay, which one was doing the thing? Was it he said the kid in the white shirt. And so he asked him, was like, the skinny kid in the white shirt or the fat kid in the white shirt? And they said the fat kid in the white shirt. And he said, hey, fatso, you, come here. And so he said that was bad because he called him fat. Okay. Forget about the fact that he was talking about that kid beating the shit out of another kid.
Yeah.
Who cares if he called him fat? He was identified as the fat kid in the white shirt, not Jordan. Sorry, buddy. First name that came to mind.
You're the fat kid in the gray shirt.
First, shut up, Jeff. I need to insert Jeff laughing on the in the background.
How dare you?
Fucking Jeff. What a dick. Look at him.
You got a problem?
So that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing, because we do have somebody else. How about this? How would we like to hear from some parents on this situation? How about that? So, on the website Odyssey, that's AUDACA or CY, I can't read. Buffalo parent on accusations against Buffalo public school systems. If you speak out, you're done. I am thankful that Detective Richard High came forward. The district has a history of covering up. This doesn't surprise me one bit. So, Buffalo, New York, an outspoken Buffalo schools parent, speaking for himself and not for any other group that he represents, told WBEN he's not surprised one bit of the accusations of a cover-up against the district. Ed Spidell, we talked about him earlier, joined in on that. And he said, I'm thankful that Detective Richard High came forward. The district has a history of covering up. I deal with a lot of special ed parents, and we have a lot of problems in special ed where students are placed in improper classrooms. This doesn't surprise me one bit. Spidell, who also serves as president of the District Parenting Coordinating Council, which we mentioned earlier, said he's speaking for himself because he thinks he will be blacklisted for his opinions. Why would he be blacklisted? He said, because nobody wants us to speak bad about Buffalo public schools, he answered. Spidell said over the last 4 years, he's attended almost every school board meeting, and every month, he said, parents bring in legitimate complaints about the board, but in his word, the district stonewalls it. I know of a mom who reported her young child was assaulted by a substitute teacher, and the district will not give the teacher's name. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know who did it, but you won't tell us who did it, so that the mom can press charges. So now you can't even press charges because you don't know who the hell to press charges on, right? And what do? Basically go to every teacher who was working that day and hope they know who did it, right?
They're not going to say anything.
Probably won't. Okay, so and it says, it's disturbing the lack of transparency that comes out of Buffalo Public Schools. In the YouTube podcast, Detective High said Buffalo school staff isn't saying anything for fear of losing their jobs. Spadell said that's 100% true. If you speak out, you're done. Buffalo School Board has called for a special meeting Monday afternoon. See, I was right. Monday. Dude, I don't know what day it is anymore. I was like 3 days ahead all week last week. So I kept releasing stuff early. On Tuesday, I thought it was Wednesday, so I kept dropping everything early. I almost released the podcast on Thursday without even thinking about it. So I'm expecting a proper statement from the board, noted Spadell. I don't think the board can ignore this. They need impartial investigations, he added. This is deep. There are lots of problems going on in the Buffalo Public Schools that are not being reported. That's a lot of shit. And I also believe it. You know, my mom was a substitute teacher and then also an ABU assistant teacher for well over a decade. And there was all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
All kinds of shit. Like, forget about the stuff that just the kids are doing. Like catching preteens fucking under the stairs. Like, of course. God knows how many girls were pregnant, even at that time, right? Definitely knowing of acts of violence and stuff like that. And mind you, that's here in our kind of small-ish town. You know, obviously New Waverly's a little bit smaller, but, you know, people were able to do the right thing a bit more there. So, like, if something happened, if my mom were to witness something happen between a student and another student and she didn't say anything, that would have been her ass for not reporting it.
Yeah.
In this case, and it feels like it is more of a modern situation, because I feel like this could easily happen here in, you know, basically the largest school in 20 miles. I guarantee you that same shit's probably happening that nobody reports. You know, whether it's sexual assault or just gang activity. I know the gang activity used to be really bad at Conroe High. I don't know if it still is, but I don't go there anymore. I wouldn't know. But I mean, when you have a school that's like 1,500, 2,000 fucking kids,
Yeah.
you know, what are you supposed to do? You can't keep an eye on all of them at all times, right? But in this case, what the fuck, you know? And as somebody who doesn't have kids currently, but was a stepdad at one point, if I ever fucking found out that some shit had happened to my stepdaughter and nobody fucking did anything about it, and then they got in my way as I tried to find out any information, well, it's a good thing I know Heffy. You know? I'd be like, damn, like, what the fuck are you, what are you supposed to do? You know? If this was just some dude, if it was just a concerned parent trying to go public with it, how much power do you, I mean, you're here on this mediocre, tiny podcast. Do you feel like you would actually have a voice if you needed to report something right now? Like that could make a difference?
Probably mildly.
I mean, you're also, you know, you're part of your community. People know you around town. You know, you do stuff for the PD, the FD, everybody. You know, you make signs, you deal with their vehicles. So you know a lot of people around.
Yeah.
So you could hit up some people if some shit that you knew was going down. So even you are slightly better connected than a standard just run-of-the-mill person, you know? Me, I mean, I know a few people, but nothing crazy. And I have this tiny voice on the internet. So Rich, even having his own platform, said he only felt comfortable to talk about this on Unsubscribe because basically he's surrounded by friends and surrounded by a massive community. You know, they're talking about the views on the channel is like, first of all, as I've learned from watching Unsub for the last like 10 months or so, you do not fuck with the Unsub community. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's like, I wouldn't say they're a violent bunch, but they are a tight-knit bunch, and they will have each other's back 100%. Like, just the 5 guys that were on the show with Rich have been behind him totally. Like, Donut Operator is like number 19 account on Twitter, period. It's like, if you need something done via the internet, you tell Cody. Cody takes care of it on X. That's how that works. Like, not to mention, he was also a cop. He was also in the Navy. So he knows this shit. Also, to be even funnier, some of the incidents they're talking about with Rich doing bad shit on camera that people have accused him of, Cody did breakdown videos before they were ever friends. So he actually broke down the police footage of the incidents that they were talking about that they're trying to hold against Rich. That's what's nuts. So the fat electrician has been out there every day since then, commenting on any post. They're trying to get anybody they can to talk about it. And the funny thing is, I did see when he went on Timcast, the news podcast that I watch every night, he just casually dropped, by the way, I mentioned it on Unsub, where the Buffalo school system is not reporting sexual stuff. And he just left it. Didn't say anything else because they wanted to make sure the podcast came out. That's how I know
Something was
YouTube time travel.
Yep.
That's what I always call YouTube time travels. They recorded that a couple weeks ago, and then due to the self-defense claims that we're talking about with the Carmelo Anthony stuff, which we have not followed up on yet to see where that's fucking going. I know that's still a huge mess politically. But that's why he was on Timcast, was talking about, as a cop who was a special victims unit, and talking about self-defense and police violence and all this other stuff. And then they had a self-defense lawyer. So that's why he was on the show, right? And then he just casually drops, yeah, by the way, Buffalo School District just allowing stuff to happen to kids and not doing anything about it. And no follow-up, surprisingly, from there, because it was just such a casual thing. And then this drops. Let's see. Actually, let me pop over to the video. Let me see how many views that video actually has now on Unsub. Because they said it was 500,000 as of Sunday. Unsubscribe podcast. Only 727,000. I mean, people saw it. Now, the funny part is, if you watch the whole podcast that it was an excerpt from, very different vibe, because it is just friends hanging out, goofing off. But I knew there was a point that they cut and removed it, because you can see the point where, like, they clearly, as an editor of a podcast, I know how sometimes you cut and rearrange things. So you could just see that they clearly removed some stuff, and then they actually put off the actual episode that was supposed to come out Saturday to put that up. So, because I'd watched the version on their exclusive website, and then I came back to YouTube and I was like, wait, what? That's not. I was like, oh, what's this? And then that's when I read it on Saturday after it dropped. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, as someone who is a victim of child sexual assault, I feel a way about it. I always have. It's like, what? Luckily, my parents listened to me when I told them something had happened. Like, I didn't have to go to a school guidance counselor or whatever. It didn't happen at school. It happened at home. But, like, my parents listened to me, even though I was a dumb little 3-year-old. And then something happened. I don't know what they did, but I'm pretty sure they took that bitch to court. I'm sure something happened. It was one of our neighbors babysitting me. If you've never heard the story. But, also, I don't know who the fuck wants to try to have sex with a 3-year-old, because, that's a thing that happens, right? Jordan. Stop texting me right now. Man, nobody's going to be a men's group tonight. Either way. But no, I just like, if something had happened to me in the same way, and then I felt like nobody would have listened to me, I don't even know where I'd be at this point. You know what I mean? So I can't even really imagine. I can try to imagine what it's like for these little kids, especially the one that fucking nearly got abducted. Like, and nobody would have fucking known.
No.
It's like, so the question I got to ask about that, if they deleted the footage after they caught the guy, because they did catch him and somebody stopped him, would they have deleted the footage if he got away with the kids? If his plan had worked out, would they have deleted the footage to cover their own ass? That's the real question you got to fucking ask at this point. If they will cover it up and not tell the parents it happened, it actually might have come from the parents of the girl, because they clearly prosecuted off of that story.
Yeah.
Why did they cover it up for the boy? It's like, I mean, I hope that kid's going to be okay.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, luckily nothing went further, but holy fuck, man, I couldn't even imagine. Because I know, and not to play that game, but almost nobody thinks about what happens to little boys. Really, nobody does. When I tell people I was sexually assaulted, they're like, "What? I thought it only happened to girls." It's like, no,
No.
you'd be incredibly surprised how often it happens to either little boys or men in general, because it can happen. You can get sexually. I mean, everybody. And the funny part is they also only ever think of men doing it to whoever. In my case, it was a female. You know, it was I think she was a teenager. I'm not entirely certain. You know, don't know exactly how old she was. She wasn't a kid. I just know that. But yeah, nobody ever thinks about that. And in this case, trying to steal two. And now knowing the world we live in, where sex trafficking is way, way bigger than even we have an understanding of. But those kids have just been sold into some other slavery somewhere. We don't even fucking know. The question is, how deep do we dig? All the way? Find all the dirt? I mean, I think that's the only right thing to do. Unbury all of it, you know. Same thing with the Epstein files. It's like, why the fuck don't we know? Right? Not to go off that onto that level, but and that's the same kind of situation, except much larger cover up, obviously. But you know, condense the same situation. They know shit was happening, but because certain people are involved and they basically shut people down or make them disappear, even literally, once again, not trying to get off the subject, but this weekend, the top victim who came forward about Epstein, quote unquote, suicided herself this weekend. It's like, are you shitting me? After she mysteriously got hit by a school bus. I don't know if you heard that story.
I haven't heard that at all yet.
So she's literally the main fucking victim that came forward for Epstein. And a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, she gets T-boned by a school bus going like 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, what school bus goes 70 miles an hour?
None of them. That's why. Nearly kills her. Doesn't. And then she's literally on her deathbed. And like basically they tell her like, hey, you're dying or whatever. But instead of saying anything else, she's like, okay, but before I go, I want to see my kids. Almost like, wait, what do you mean before you go? Like, you know, it's like you're in. I mean, yes, you want to see your kids, but it's like, how do you phrase that way? And that's a bigger scale problem. Obviously, someone who was assaulted, went through all this stuff, evidence of the people that were doing stuff to her, literally getting buried and suicided, so to speak. This is just some little kid and a parent who doesn't even get told. It's like, it doesn't even have to be a giant government conspiracy. It might be your fucking school or your church, you know, to throw the Catholics under the bus a little bit. I was a Catholic. It's okay. I can talk about it. I was like, I was Catholic. I can talk about this. Luckily, I didn't know anybody who got touched by our priest. But then he went away. I don't know what happened after that. I stopped going to that church. We got a new pope soon, though. Forgot the pope died. I don't think we talked about it at all.
No, we didn't.
It happened in between episodes.
Yep.
So, I mean, I made the statement on Facebook that here on this podcast, we 100% stand behind angry cops and unsubscribe and any of those guys basically pushing this forward. I mean, we have almost no voice and no power, but I'm at least, as me, Shoky, I'm 100% behind this. You know, I'm sure Jeff would feel the same. I mean, if we got to pull out a wood chipper, you know, get the big wood chipper. It's been a while since Chippy's been fed, you know. Good old wood chippers for pedophiles. You know, just throw them in there. But yeah, it's just fucking A, man. That was a hell of a thing. And like I said, I watched all of that stuff and it over my head until this episode dropped, and I went, oh shit, he did say that. It's like, I forgot he did mention that, you know, out there. But imagine being him for all this time, seeing these horrible things happening, knowing that it's going on and not being able to fucking do anything about it, even as a police officer. Now, mind you, he's not going out there and doing anything rogue. He's not being a fucking vigilante. He's not putting on a mask at night and hunting down pedophiles. I wouldn't blame him. But, you know, it's like, we can't all be Batman. You know, he could be, kind of. You know, he has a crack house he could use to... You got to watch This Old Crack House show. So he bought a crack house on an auction and has completely redid it over the last couple of years. Looks gorgeous. It's in Buffalo.
Okay.
This Old Crack House. He even sells shirts for This Old Crack House. So guys, if you remotely agree with it, by all means, I'll link to the store, and also all the proceeds from that video are all going to help with anything he might need, like legal wise, because he is very, very worried he's going to lose his job. Or he mentioned where he gets suspended for like put on leave for like 10 fucking years, and basically they just retire him in disgrace. Could you imagine taking a cop off the streets who does a good job.
Yeah.
Does he sometimes get a little overzealous in stopping a bad guy? Sometimes. But he's never shot and killed anybody outside of military functions, perhaps. But, you know, he's a big personality, but he's a really good dude from all accounts. You know? So, yeah, kind of a downer this week for the most part, but it's an important fucking story.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can talk about pop culture, we can talk about silly movies and all this other shit, but this is shit that actually matters, and these are real people who are being affected. You know, it's not Hollywood dipshits. You know, I have the follow-up to the Gene Hackman story. You know, they found some weird shit in his autopsy. It doesn't make sense. But this is a bigger story than an old man died. You know? So, just wanted to talk about that. You know, so guys, it's an old adage, but basically, if you see something, say something. As the other dude said, where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should fucking look. You know, find the people who are willing to look. And do what you got to do to get any obstructions out of the fucking way. You know? So here's the funny part. I was a Catholic, I was a Boy Scout, and all these other things. I had all of these tries, and only got raped the once. But apparently it did happen in Boy Scouts too. Just not to me or anybody I specifically knew. But apparently it happened. Also, unfortunately, in the church I was a part of for a long time, there was a little bit of some touchy-feely stuff happening with one of the youth leaders. Once again, I wasn't there for that. I seem to miss all of those things, and I'm grateful for that, but it's unfortunate that it fucking happened. But someone stood up, said something, and it got taken care of instead of getting buried. I mean, it got buried in the fact that almost nobody knows about it, but at least it's a public record that people can go look up. Good luck fucking finding anything here. That video should be on the fucking internet tomorrow. But no. So either way, guys, thoughts, emails, voice messages, whatever. Let us know how you feel about this. If you want to dig into it further, obviously I'll do my best to link the articles. Shit changes all the time. They'll literally go back in and edit shit. They did do that. There was one article that said some bad shit about him just in the headline. He got called out on Twitter, and they changed it. They changed the headline to be less shitty towards him. Because, once again, like they phrased it, a Buffalo cop with a rocky past says that the school district is covering up kids getting raped. It's like, wait, we need to hear this part over here. Or best case scenario, put a but in the middle. Because I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it's something I live by. Everything said before the word but means nothing in a sentence. So if you said a Buffalo, New York cop with a rocky past and some weird accusations of his own, but he is calling out this calling out the school district for covering up horrible shit.
Yeah, don't worry about the first part.
Yeah, forget it. Yeah, but in this case, no but. Yeah. Just focus on him having a rocky past. And so people will go, wait, but why does he have a rocky past? And then you dig into it and you're like, oh, that's not that bad. Not to dismiss shitty behavior sometimes, but, you know, sometimes cops got to do shit they got to do.
Trying to redirect what's actually going on.
Yeah, so they want you to focus on him. And I even said that to the guy who was sort of, I couldn't tell if he was arguing with me or being supportive. It was really weird the way the responses were worded. But I was like, so why are we focused at all on the cop for reporting it? Why aren't you worried about the fact that it wasn't getting reported at all? That's the focus of the story. You know? That's the insanity of it. Much like the deportations. It's like, you're mad that they're getting deported, but you're not mad about why they're getting deported. It's like, hey, the violent crimes, that's the thing we should look at. Not the person that's like, oh, I'm an MS-13 criminal. Don't deport me, bro. You know, that didn't get a chance to say that. Or it was in Spanish. One of the two. That might be the teaser. It has nothing to do with the rest of the story. I'm just going to say some wild shit.
There you go.
Just for funsies. All right, guys. Either way, so for the love of God, take care of your kids. You know, be aware of what the fuck is happening with your children. I know, you know, we haven't talked about anything, but you know, as a father, you know exactly how that feels.
Yep.
Like, holy shit, you can't be on top of them 24/7, but if you don't even realize some horrible shit is happening to your kids, fucking A, you know. And then if you know somebody was covering up horrible shit happening with your kids. Deal with it in the best way possible. So let me say smartest way possible. That might be a better way to phrase that. I mean, wood chippers are available, but still. All right, guys, we will see y'all next week. Do the like and subscribe thing, please, for the love of God. Go show Angry Cops and Unsub some love. And also, if you just want to see a bunch of military dudes talking about stuff just for funsies, and they are all hilarious, go watch the Unsubscribed podcast, because that's where we get a little bit of what we do here, including the offenders. You know, the Awkward Offenders is literally a branch of their offenders. So either way, we'll see you guys next time. And with that, okay, bye. 3, 2